Okay, so today I want to talk about modeling architecture. In this case, some ancient Greek architecture. This is the Odeon Theater in Athens near the Acropolis. And I want to show you ways to think about modeling stuff like this, because it's got a lot of like complex arches and niches that are carved into this facade. And these can be modeled, individually and just pieced together, or we can do it in a way where we treat the facade as one piece for like a low poly model. And it's a fairly complex piece because it's got so many different levels to it. And the same thing for this seating in the back. By doing that, it should make it a little bit easier to texture. We're going to use it for a virtual reality model using A-frame. So let's get started. What I'm using as a reference here is Photogrammetry. Somebody from Sketchfab, I'll put a link to the model in the video. They basically flew a drone around and just shot a lot of pictures and then used photogrammetry software to piece it together. And it's okay. It's a little rough. There's angles that probably aren't there. But we can use it as a reference in terms of positioning of the arches. So what I've done is I've gone and scaled the photogrammetry model up so that it's scaled based on dimensions I found on the web to the appropriate real-world size. And I just used, cube size to those dimensions to fit the parts that it said. So in this case, the orchestra is supposed to be 21.4 meters. If I make a cube and make it 21.4, put it into position with the orchestra, you can see that it matches up, and then this is 81 meters, or 84, I can't remember. So I scaled the whole thing up and then centered it in the world to make it easier. And then I took the joined model, the photogrammetry was in pieces, and I joined them together and then deleted faces, or duplicated and then deleted faces. So now I have a facade and a theater. So we'll work on the facade first. Let's go ahead and make a cube. And we'll scale it to roughly the width of the wall. If we go to the top view, F3. To get everything scaled to the thickness of the wall. And then just raise it up into position. Okay, so we can then pull, if we go into edit mode, and just select these faces, just pull them to get it to the right edge. Now you'll notice as I'm doing this that I'm not pulling it all the way to the edge of the building, because what's going on is, well, it's hard to tell in this photogrammetry, but there's these false walls or facades that stick off of this facade because of the way the theater's built, with trails and stuff that wrap around the back of the building. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to build it to the edge, and then we can extrude off from that as we go. Because we don't want to have this entire face be out here like this, and then have to do some cut or something to pull it back in. It's easier to extrude out than it is to cut and tuck back in. Okay, so get that, and then off the front. Okay, so now that we have that, we can put a line in the center. So if we go to edit and use this loop cut tool, that will give us a center line. Let's go to the top view and make sure that that center line is centered. You can see it's a little off from the reference point. I'll just pull it to there. It's important to get this centered because we're going to do like half the work by doing a mirror modifier. That's why I put the line down the center. Edit. And then if you look at our references, I found a bunch of reference photos as it was built, or kind of artist renditions. So we have to, there's this center roof section that sticks off below the, it's hard to tell where it goes to. Well, there's 4 arches there, yeah, so this is a sloped roof. So this lower arch line goes around, there's a roof below that. So if we look at our model, our reference, another thing we want to do, let's go back out real quick. We want to make this transparent so we can see our reference through it. So in order to do that, click on the Material tab and make a new material, call it Transparent. And scroll down to Alpha, set it to like 0.5, and then it doesn't show transparent yet because we've got this blend mode that's set to opaque. We need to make that alpha blend. Now, then you can tweak the transparency. So now we can still see our model. And another thing we could probably do if we want to make it even better is be able to see the edges even when we're not in wireframe mode. So if we go into the Model Context tab here, and then under Viewport Display, just turn on wireframe. Now we can see all of our cuts. Okay, so let's see. Yeah. Let's go ahead and turn on the theater. I want to show you. It's going to take a second to turn it off and on because of the textures. There is a stairway that gets you to the center level of the seating, and that is the level just below the roof. So the roof, I believe, comes in right about here above this arch. And that makes sense for being where it was in the reference. So 2 arches and then a roof right there. So what we'll do is we can do an edge cut, go into edit mode, and then do our loop cut. And we'll put one sort of right there for now. So that should give us, I think, oh, we also need this edge cut here, or loop cut I should say, right here for this wall, and then the same thing for this one. And then from that, we select by faces, yeah, with the transparency. So there's a difference between the transparency and using this X-ray. If I select X-ray, I can select through faces. If I turn that off, then I can only select the front faces. So we'll pull this facade like this, select all those faces, and then extrude region to bring it to there. So you can see there's a difference in where these edges extrude out to. There's a little bit of an inset here, and that's okay because what we can do is we'll do another line cut at this point so that we can extrude out. So let's do our loop cut and just pull it to where you can see it right there. Now if we select our faces, so it'll be this one, these down below, and then these two. and then extrude those. And then it looks like this one, these two come out even further, like that. Now, that gives us the rough blocked out facade minus what we need to do on the inset here, and then these rooms that have the steps and stuff inside, but we'll get to that. I think we also need to extrude off the side here for these false, or these wings that come out. So we'll select that. And I'm trying to think if the wall has a thickness there, probably. Yeah. We'll assume it does. And then extrude out. Just trying to do it. Hit W for movement or transform, and I'm just bringing it to the edge of the steps there, or the wall edge. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Yeah, this may be where the roof actually comes to. It's hard to say. These windows are sort of lower, like they're missing blocks or something compared to these. So I'm going to assume that there's symmetry to the structure, and that these blocks are sort of missing. So it's okay if this back edge comes up some to match this. I don't want to put a slope on it just yet. So what I'm probably going to do is select these faces. And go ahead and pull them using this as a reference. This, the edge on the facade wall that sticks off. Pull them up to there. It's okay if there's a bit of an angle here. And then the same thing for this point. We select it. Go to F1 for straight on orthographic view. And then F2 for this. Sorry. F2 for the side. Accidentally hit align mode. Alright, now we have our straight lines again, and this comes up to where I expect it to be. So let's go ahead and select these faces. Make sure we got them all. Extrude to this wall there. And we need to double click on this loop. Whoops. Make sure we're not in extrude mode. Yeah, that looks like it's got an angle. Okay, then if we go to F2 on the side, hit W, bring it up till it's straight. It's good enough. Alright, so now we have our facade with the interiors, etc., but they're not blocked out yet. Before we go and start creating these arches to cut, now we can go out to object mode, go ahead and save, we'll make some cutters to start cutting into this transparent facade. So while I'm going to leave it transparent, we'll make some box. We'll go add, mesh, cube. Make sure you're in object mode as you do this, because you're going to want to make sure it's a separate object so that we can do a Boolean with it. I'll show you what that means in a second if you're not familiar with Booleans. Let's go to F3 for the top. I'm just scaling this to the width of the so we can see our cutters. I'm going to make another material for this, so we'll go into material tab, new, we'll call this cutter. I'm going to make, we're in shaded mode, so we want to make the base color something that is recognizable as different. I'm going to make it red, and in case we go into object mode, which will make everything gray again, we'll go to the viewport display and make that red as well. Alright, so now the red color, this material will be our cutter material, so we can see what's a cutter and what's not. And it looks like the facade goes all the way to the top. That looks pretty good. Now, let's make sure, let's go F3 to see it from the top down. I'm just trying to find where this edge, that's the thickness of this front wall, and bring it to that. Then we can scale a little. If you start scaling, hold down Shift. It gives you a lot more fine control. So I'm going to scale to where that dark area. It seems like it's a little different from one side to the other, but I'm going to assume it's the same-ish. Yeah, for the sake of symmetry. So that'll be the central area for the cutter. I'm going to duplicate that. CV, W, and pull that off to the side. And I'm just going to make a smaller area for these interior stairway parts. So obviously there's going to be a roof here. So we'll pull that down below. I'm going to pull it inside. And then we have to figure out where. So if we go to F3 for the top, pull it to this edge, or get it centered and then scale it. Probably the edge that it goes to on the center here is somewhere like this for the thickness. This back wall. We'll see if it lines up. We can fix it. So if you go below and then hit Edit, select this face, you can kind of see where the wall is. It's colliding with the wall going interior. You can see where it stops colliding, like right there. Just zooming in. Also, you can go inside the actual cutter itself and see where, as you move it, you start to collide with things. So that's that wall. We can do that same thing on the back wall. So we've got this sort of scaffolding where they're doing reconstruction. So there's the actual back wall. So don't rely on the scaffolding, that's just part of the scan. And then find the interior wall, which I'm thinking is this. And the same on the front. This one's a little tricky because the fronts barely exist. So I'm assuming that this will be the wall right there. Seems right. Alright. So that way we have a scaled cutter for that side. Now we're not going to worry about the scale cutter for the other side because we're going to, this is where we go and do our mirror function. So if we go back to object mode, we can go ahead and select our facade, edit, select in X-ray mode. Oh, we can also turn off the theater behind to make it easier to see. Go ahead and just select across all of these halves. Make sure you get everything. And then delete faces. So now we have half of the facade. So if we go and in the monkey wrench tab here, this is our modifiers tab for that object. With that object selected, add a mirror function and it'll mirror it back across. Now as you do that, go to top view, F3, and we make sure that there's no extra geometry getting, that it's not like somehow mirroring across. That's why I was so careful about getting that center line on the center of the world, because it's mirroring based on this y-axis here. X-axis, mirroring across the x-axis on the y. Alright, so we take this object, add another modifier. We'll go ahead and close this mirror, just toggle it closed. Add another modifier, in this case a Boolean, and then using this object selector, this eyedropper, click on our center cutter, and you should see where it's cutting out this edge. So if we do that after the mirror, actually if we do it before the mirror, so we moved, all I did was click this arrow. So if this is after, you see you get this weird banding going on here, meaning that there's some problem where it's like creating extra polys, because basically you've got the Boolean occurring after the mirror. So you're mirroring it and then doing this Boolean to cut, but the mirror hasn't been applied, so it can't quite understand what to do. If you just click on this up arrow, move the Boolean in front of the mirror, or on the top of the mirror, then that Boolean occurs first and then the mirror. So basically you're cutting this part and then mirroring it across, so you get a better cut. And then you can go ahead and do the same thing, just copy that Boolean. Let's delete one of these, it doesn't matter which one, but we'll delete this object that's cutting. Select the eyedropper again and select this bottom part, and you get your cut going into the wall there, and it should occur. It depends. Where's my mirror? There's the mirror below. So one's 2 and one's 1. So let's move this one down. It's getting a little strange. It's just because we're doing multiple cuts and we're not doing a whole lot of geometry to work with. So let's go ahead and apply the first one. That makes the cut get better because we've got this one applied now. So basically we can pull that away, and you see where we've cut the wall. And we'll do the same thing with the second one. And we can pull that cube away. And you can see where now we've got 2 inner areas cut into the wall. Let's go ahead and hide our facade reference just to see This is where it gets a little tricky because you can see we've got some stuff, some weirdness going on. It's hard to tell, but if we select our facade, go back to your material, and turn the alpha. Actually, don't even worry about turning the alpha. Leave it at 5.5. We're just going to make it, change the alpha blend back to opaque. That way we can see, yeah, see, there's some weird, it didn't quite get the cuts going completely right because basically we gave it topology. We didn't have all of these corners and stuff closed, so it didn't quite understand how to close them. It looks like it did okay on the interior wall section. So really all we have to do is fix this. It's pretty easy to fix too. So if we select our wall, hit edit mode, we just select by edge loop or edge and select this bottom. So we're going to do a bridge between this top part and the bottom. So it'd be edge, bridge edge loops. So now we get that bridge across the center. This is going to get a little strange because we're going to do the same thing down here. We can hit G just to repeat that bridge. I've also got my X-ray was turned on. So now we can see it a little bit better. Now this is where it gets tricky because we got these two cuts right here that come across the center, and if we bridge here we're going to end up with a gap. So what we need to do is go ahead, insert edge loops at those lines, or roughly at the lines. They don't have to be perfect, like this. And then we can bridge across this way. So if we select this edge and this edge, bridge edge loop, G, oops, G. That way we make sure we've got the same topology and we're not creating any artificial places where an edge can't really match. You could fill the hole and then close the lines that way too, but then what we're left with is we should select these lines. They're just these two because it's mirrored. And just pull that. Let's go to let's see. Yeah, wireframe, F2 from the side. Then we'll use this top line as a reference for the ones we've selected to get it straight. And the same thing for here, F2, and then just pull that up. All right, turn off X-ray mode. So now, just making sure everything's closed. So you get some weird ingons here, the way the cut occurred because of this. But to be honest, we can probably just try to figure out like how to make this. I'm going to get into how to make these Boolean cuts work better in a sec, but I'm just looking at, so like this is going to be weird here. Probably better to keep it quadded. So all we're going to do is select by edge and anything that we want to get rid of that seems extraneous. Just select those edges and then right click and then dissolve edges. So I didn't get rid of everything yet, but it will because we're going to fix this. So now if we do select by vertex, we can select this vertex, select this one, then this one, right click, merge vertices at first, and it'll snap that vertex and merge it. Probably do the same thing here. In this case, I selected the one last, so I'll do merge vertex at last. And what I'm trying to do is basically select points and finish them so that the Boolean doesn't have to guess on any n-gons. We may come back and rearrange the topology. In fact, we probably will. But for now, I just selected these two vertices. Go to vertex, connect vertex pairs. Same thing to this corner. Whoops. For some reason, vertex connect vertex pairs does not repeat as a command in Blender 2.8. Vertex connect vertex pairs. Yeah, we could. Yeah, let's do this. We'll select this edge loop. There's no reason to do this multiple weirdness on the quad here. So we'll select that edge loop, dissolve that edge, and then we're going to insert an edge loop on the center. Whoop, what the? It may be that, yeah, we're getting some sort of closed face there. We'll fix that. But by inserting that edge loop now, we can hit W and then line it up with this. This tells you that there's something weird going on in these faces down below. This should not have happened by inserting an edge loop. It just means that there's somehow these aren't closed. So we'll hit delete faces. See, right there. So that tells you that was all the way across. That's all right though, we can delete that. And we'll close them manually. Is there any to match? Nope. And because we got it going on a mirror function, that's all we'll need to do then. So now if we select edge loop, that would have caused problems in a major way when we try to Boolean stuff, because it's got all this extra geometry that looks normal, but you can't really tell. You can't see it. So edge, bridge edge loops, same thing here. Again, I'm just hitting G to repeat the commands. This one to here. And probably across this. That's going to leave a little bit of a gap here. This we can just fill it, or yeah, we'll just fill it for now. So select these three edges. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4 actually. So actually, yeah, we can bridge. So just select the opposing edges and then edge, bridge edge loop. Okay, so now everything is right and joined, and the edge loops are contiguous across. So we can go ahead and delete, go to object mode, delete these two cutters. We don't need them anymore. We have our facade as a starting point. We'll save it. Okay, now we can start making the arches. So let's turn the reference facade back on. It's going to take a second. And we can make a new collection for our low poly. Call it low poly. And then move this cube into that. So now we can hide it by just turning off the collection. Let's go select that cube, the material, and we'll turn our blend mode back to alpha blend so we can see through. we can talk about how to make these arches real quick. So remember, we've still got this mirror function on this object. So if we can, I'll just show you. If we just turn off the visibility using this monitor, you can see blend function still there. So let's leave it turned off for a second. What we want to do is make these arches. So then we'll just go to F1. Actually, we don't need to be in F1 just yet. We're going to make, how do we make an arch? So the thing is, the most complicated part of the arch is the actual arch itself. Everything else is just squared. So if we go object, and we're in object mode, object mode, add, mesh. We want to add a cylinder. I'm just going to leave it at the default 32 vertices because anything else would be too much in terms of the poly count. Pulling it out here so I can see it. Let's assign our, with the cylinder selected, go to its material mode. Instead of adding a new one, just click on cutter. That way we can see that it's going to be a cutter. If we hit E to rotate the object and start rotating and hold down Control, you'll see you'll get these increments that are with just the control selected are at 5-degree increments, and you can rotate it to like 90 degrees. You can see where it's rotated. If you start to rotate, you'll see up here in the corner the rotation. By holding Control, you can see it snapping. So that's 90 degrees. Let's also right-click on this and say Shade Smooth. Now, notice when I hit Shade Smooth, we lose the sharp edge on the cylinder. That we can get that back just by going to the Vertex tab for that object right here. And under Normals, Auto Smooth, that way we get it back. Now I'm going to pull that into the wall. We'll go to F1. Whoops, hit 1. In object mode, hit F1. Make sure you don't go to hit 1 because that's going to go to Vertex Edit. Excuse me. Hit R once you're in the orthographic front view, and then just grab the white circle and start scaling. And you can hold down Shift to get it a little bit finer. Scale, and then pull it up into position. Alright, we'll call that right size for now. If you hit F while you've got an object selected, it'll zoom, and now it's just going to rotate around that object. So what we want to do is go with the cylinder selected, hit Edit, and we're going to select by face. And rather than selecting, like here's the halfway point going across, we don't want to select that, because if we do, we're going to pull and we'll get this weird sloped angle. So we're going to just select the one below halfway around along the bottom. Make sure, yep. And then scale that, hit R, and just scale it flat. I'm just doing it multiple times. It doesn't matter that it's perfectly flat, but so there's that. That way we get our square, flat bottom. Now the problem is, let me hide the facade. If I hit Control F3 to go to the bottom, you'll see where the edges aren't as wide as the actual arch. Just hit R with everything selected. Start to scale them, and then hold down Shift. Just scale them flat to the edge like that. Doesn't have to be perfect, just close. Hit the line, or go into edge mode. Select all these lines across the bottom. We don't need all this extra geometry when we go to do a Boolean cut with this. So we're going to delete it, or actually not delete it, we're going to dissolve it. So once you've got all these lines selected, just right click, dissolve edges. Now we do want to help the Boolean cutter by taking this front engon, which is pretty complex, and giving it a little bit more guidance in terms of how to cut this. So what we'll do is select by vertex this point and this point, then go to vertex, connect vertex pairs, and I'm just going to put a little line across the center, so now we have a half circle and a square. Same thing on the back side. Vertex connects vertex pairs, and then that way it gives it just a little help when we do a Boolean with it. Let's stay in edit mode and select by face. Pull this down. We'll turn our facade back on. We'll go to F1, and then I can just pull this down to low enough so it's in the ground. Actually, probably won't even go further down below this bottom. For that matter, let's select, go back to object mode, select our facade, go to edit mode, select all of these faces along the bottom. And just pull them up to just below the ground level. Speaking of which, this ground level has a bit of a slope from here to here because of the slope of the terrain, or maybe it's settled even. And I know that because I actually ran some blocks across the tops of the arches to see that they were straight and that this floor was not. So you can see where that happens here, where we start to see this edge. So we want to make sure it's below the lowest part. Okay. Now we can go back out to object mode, select our cutter, edit, select that bottom face, and then just pull it up. Make sure it's below. It doesn't have to be below, but this will just mean less topology that when we cut through, as opposed to creating a hole in the wall. All right, so now we have that. Hit F1, and we can hit C, V, duplicate, pull it over. There's a slight difference in size on this one right here. There's not right here. In fact, if anything, it may be a little smaller. So all we have to do is hit R, W position, C. Actually, before we copy that, notice that there's a niche, and these are niches, and that this, I think this one may have been a niche too. Yeah. So when you have a niche, one way you can sort of see how deep to make it is if you just go within inside of the wall and select your two objects and just pull them until they're starting to show through the back of the niche. So then we can go to F1, CV, and those two are the same. CV. This one's a little lower for some reason. Maybe wider. Yeah, it's a little wider too. Hit R. CV. There's another one here, which we don't really see the arch of, but we can assume is about the same. And then we've got these doors. Let's go ahead and make this one that's a little bit different and all the way through. I'm just doing C and V, F1. We'll scale it up. And pull the back faces, go to edit mode, all the way through. Looks like on this back side, like it's a little bit thicker. I don't know if that's a difference in the scale or if there's just some sort of like pinch in the arch. So what we can do to emulate that is do an inset right here, this inset faces. Just grab and scale till the edges line up, and then do an extrude from that to come out through. Okay, now let's take go to object mode and select this niche, the center one. We're going to make this door next, the center door, which has this little inset arch inside. So we're going to go to C, V, pull this one over. It's bigger. So how to make that inset arch? Hit R, scale it until you see the edges, pull it down a little bit, then push it back to wherever that edge is. It's hard to tell. May not even have that edge that I'm thinking about. I know that this one does. You can see it. I'm not sure. These don't seem to. They have it on the interior, like what I did for the back there. So let's go get bigger. I'm just undoing. I went too far. Let me object mode, select this one. Yep, that's only one, and it's a niche. So CV, pull it over, go F1, just scale it up bigger. W, and the same thing as this. Oops, I may have gone where I didn't scale it in. We'll select edit, select these two, hit W, back to where the inset occurs. Do that inset again. And then extrude. Actually, I accidentally undid the work that I'd done when I was doing all those undos. We'll do the same thing. Go edit or object mode, select this door, edit. We're going to do the, we'll just select these two faces, inset. Actually, we've got to pull them up to where the inset occurs, like there. And then inset. And then extrude. Alright. Now let's go back out to object mode. Yeah, let's take one of these arches, hit F1, CV, get it lined up in the center. There's the inner width. Okay, pull it back to where it's flush to the inner arch. Then go into edit mode, select these two faces. We're going to do an inset. Can't inset out, but we can do that in and then hit R and then just scale it out. I'll go into F1 so we can see. And then extrude off of that. F1. Probably could have gone bigger, so undo. Do R, F1. Get it out to the extreme, then extrude. Okay. So there's that door. We've got the exact same situation right here. So we'll take this. Is it a door? Is it? Yeah, it is a door. But it's a door into this inner room. So there's probably going to be some steps or something coming up out of it. But it's inside of our box. Yeah. So it'll just cut in. And there's not a door here because it's under the stairs, so it just needs to come to where it's good. That's good. So F1, Control C, V, copy that entire door. And we'll zoom to get it aligned. Alright, that should be good. Alright, so there's our bottom arches. Now, let's do these windows up at the top. Same process. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat all of this, filling out all of these arches and holes until I get to these cutters, which are the rounded ones on the inside. And then I'll slow down the video and explain how to make those. All right. Okay, so I've got all of the arches placed and scaled and modified in the ways that make them fit the reference. So the only thing left to add are these circular niches. So all we have to do that is the same way we made these arches. We'll make in object mode, we'll make a sphere, UV sphere, and assign the cutter material. Now I'm just call it a cutter material. It's not really doing anything like mechanically, but it just helps me see what's a cutter and what's something being cut. So we'll make this shade smooth. We will go to the vertex and turn on auto smooth. So what we want to do, Control F1, just get it to roughly the right scale for the width and the height. Hit F to zoom in on it. Edit, and all we're going to do is just double click around the edges. Oops. And then for this one we can just select, as long as we don't have on the X-ray mode, but make sure you didn't select through the back. Excuse me. So also notice I'm not selecting this ring right at the halfway point, because again we want to scale this flat. I'm not going past because then it'll scale in the inverse. I'm just scaling it a little bit at a time to get it relatively flat. Now go to object mode. We got to pull this out past our so I can see up from the bottom. So we'll hit Control F3, which will let me see it from the bottom. And then if you hit edit mode, we should have all of our rings selected still. Hit R and start scaling it, and then just hold down Shift. And I'm just scaling it to the edge to get it straight. Okay, so hit Control F1 to see it from behind. Scale it to the height that we want. Now we're going to do the same thing that we just did in terms of extrusion or flattening it, but we're going to do it along the side view. So if we hit Control F2 and select across this back face, but do it with your X-ray turned on so we can select through. And then just make sure we got all these edges across the top and the bottom. Alright, so we have the half. Control F2. And if we hit extrude, we're going to do it at an angle because it just won't go straight. You can just, once you don't deselect, but with the extrude options turned on, just set that to 0 and it'll pull it back. Hit W and then pull it out. That way you get a straight edge, and then from there you can scale it flat. Okay. And then we can do the same thing we did with the edges. Just double click and don't want to select all the way around. Turn off your X-ray mode and just select across all of these edges to get all those selected. And then Control Select to deselect any that you don't want. We don't want these. Basically, if you see where it looks like the whole face is selected, then you've got too much selected. I'm just deselecting these edges. You can hold down Control and do the same thing that way. Something's going on right here. Why aren't these lining up? I don't know. Probably a face issue. We'll check. Oh, it's where I didn't delete these along the bottom as I flattened it first. But we can do that. So if you just double click these lines and then right click dissolve edges, that gives us a cleaner cut or cutter. I'm going to leave this line connecting. And then the same thing, double click on these. Everything but the center one. And dissolve edges. Then what we can try and see is if we have, yep, we do. So what we can do is we're going to delete these faces and then we'll just bridge the back. Because you don't want this here. I mean, it's just more geometry. I don't think it'll do anything bad, but just to get it clean in case you're ever making this shape for something else, just delete those faces and then select edge, bridge, edge loops, and then gives you a clean cutter that makes with just the polys that you need. So go to object mode. Now we want to pull that into our niche. Hit F to align. Let's go ahead and turn on so we can see how it aligns with the wall. Go ahead and turn on under the context, go to viewport display, turn on wireframe. So then we can see where this edge comes to. And you don't have to go, you can go a little bit beyond just to help it. I think that's deep enough. So there's that. Let's go Control F1 just to see if it's the right size. Could go a little bit bigger. And then bring the faces up on the bottom. Whoops, face. Select by face. Make sure you get. Can't select here. We can do shift select and that'll get them all. Control F1. Pull it up. Alright. Object. So there's that. And then we need to put one here. Control F1. CV. I accidentally deselected. Just grab whichever one of these, since we only did it once. There's that. Now I need to see if there's one here. There is. So Control CV, pull that out, E to rotate, start rotating and then hold down Control and just get it to 90 degrees. Pull this to get it aligned. I think that's good. Alright. I believe that's all the cutters. Let's double check. Would there be any on the interior? Let's hide our cube. Just check this interior wall. It's kind of hard to say with this scaffolding the way it is. Doesn't look like there are any arches there. Let's check the other side. So there's this one. Steps. So really can't tell. It doesn't make much sense to have them there, but there is this one. And is that... yeah, that's below this arch where this would be. So we will make one more. This arch, CV, pull it down. In this case, I'm going to pull it over here to get it positioned and scaled. I'm just assuming symmetry here, so you won't want to leave it on this side, but since we have a reference to it here, we might as well use it. Or hit F1 to get it scaled properly. So and then pull that bottom face up. Because it is a niche, you can kind of see where it ends. There. And then check the back face to make sure it's not going too far. There you go. Now that we have that, let's move it back over to the side. We're mirroring across. This will be Control. Let's do F1. I'm just going to align it with this door, assuming that that's the right position for it. Although maybe it's aligned with this back wall, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just a niche, so I think it'll be fine. Okay. Now that we have all those, let's turn our facade back on. We'll save. We have to think about how to make this, because if I just go ahead and start cutting these in, I'm going to create, like, because I don't have any spaces in between these edges, I'm going to create a bunch of n-gons by doing the cut through this face. Just to give you the idea, let's go ahead and with this, go to the modifiers tab. We're going to go ahead and view the mirror now. And then we'll do, let's say this one. So we'll add a Boolean. And I'll select this object for the cutter. I'm going to move it above, and you can see where it cuts the hole out there. And that's fine, but now I've got tons of geometry here with no guiding edges to do it. And the more I do that, so let me add another. I'm just going to duplicate or copy the Boolean. Notice the whole thing disappeared. But wait, just to make sure, let's turn that back off. Select the next in the line. It's doing it okay, but at some point it's going to give out. So to make it easier on us, I'm going to leave those the way they are. We can go and edit our object and then insert some guiding edges or loop cuts across between the windows to give it so that it doesn't have to cut so much geometry. So there's that. I'll reposition these. Okay, now if we look at, let's go ahead, notice that the cuts are cleaner, and I basically, if I go and triangulate this, I'm going to get just better. Alright, so now that we know that we've got everything segmented the way we want it, we can go ahead and select our wall. Let's go ahead and get rid of these booleans for now, and we'll leave the mirror. I want to take all except for the center line ones and group them or join them as objects. So I'm just going to do it part by part so it's less work for the boolean. So we'll select this bottom row, object, join, this row, object, join, same thing here, just less booleans this way. And here, and we will do the back, those are joined, those, so these can be, and then all of these. Now when you get these that are have different axes, when you do the join, you're going to want to object and apply all transforms so that you don't end up getting weird mirroring or any kind of scale. That's in the center, so let's go and join all of these. Not that one. Again, because we had this rotated parts, we'll do apply all transforms on those. And is there any in the center or in this interior parts? Nope. So make sure they're all, these two. This one, I can do it individually. And then these center parts could be one together. So we can join those. And that's it. All right, let's save. Now with our mirror selected, we'll add a boolean again. We will select this bottom row, move it up in front of the mirror, and you can see where we get it all the way across. Okay. We will copy that, delete that one, select the next row, thinking. That again, select this one. You can see where it starts to insert these edges, these lines to help with the boolean, but that's okay. That helps, and we can, they're not too bad. At least they're doing the cut, and we're not losing any faces. We'll copy. Notice everything disappeared. Again, that's because we've got some deleted, or some duplicated booleans. Just get rid of the object, hit it by clicking on the X, and then select the thermometer again to pick the next row up. Copy, lost it again, delete this one, select the top row, okay. And you get an idea of how this is going to go. So we can go ahead and just apply what we have, apply, and apply. Don't lose the mirror, keep that. So now we can take these cylinders, go ahead and hide them. And see what's left of Boolean. So we need to do the center row. So select add Boolean. And we'll move it in front on top of the mirror. Now you see where we're getting some weirdness here because it's happening on the maybe we need to move that below. Yeah, it seems to cut better. We'll apply, because we don't have to mirror across the axis, we're just cutting after the mirror. It's going to do a better cut. If we do it before the mirror, then it's going to mirror the cut and do some weirdness on the joints. Are these the same? Alright, so let's just double check to make sure they're cutting. We'll hide that. Yep, they are. Good. So we'll go ahead and select, apply that Boolean down the center. See what happened here is, even after we applied it, we still got the weirdness. It's because it's going across the center line and there's probably not a join there. So it may be that we want to do the mirror first and then apply the Boolean, that particular centerline Boolean. What we'll do though is we'll get these others done and applied first. So copy. Did I copy the mirror or the Boolean? Yeah. So delete this one. Select those. We will move it above the mirror, so then we see it mirrored here. Go ahead and duplicate that one or copy it. It's going to lose everything. Just remove the Boolean object that's getting cut. Same thing with these squares. So we see those. And then these. It's thinking, hopefully it doesn't crash. Let's go ahead and save. So select, let's go ahead and allow it to get this far. So we'll Boolean apply and apply. Then we can hide these and these. We'll delete, we'll throw them away when we're done with them. Let's see what's left to be cut. Oh, I've got one hidden that I don't need, that center one, because I haven't done it yet. The one that's below here, because I want to do the mirror first. Okay, so we'll do this, and let's add a Boolean. Select those niches, we'll move them up above the mirror so you see them reflected, or at least looks like it's only one. I must not have grouped these. Let's get rid of that. Select, oh, never mind, it was going across the side. But actually, I can go ahead and group those. See if there's anything else in that. So let's join them. Then we can just do one more Boolean. So we'll select this and we'll modifier Boolean, select all of those and move them up above the mirror. So you can see how they all get knocked out now. The same on the insides. Okay, we'll apply that one. Select those and hide them. Now, all that we have is this center line left. So, what we want to do is go ahead and select our facade, apply the mirror, and then let's make sure that the mirror, go to edit, that all of the points, we select the center line, hit F. I just want to make sure that yep, it's joined, that all those points got merged. And it looks like they did. So now, if we go back out to Object, take this and the Boolean and apply it, we can hide that one and we get all of our cuts clean. Let's see if there's any missing faces where I had trouble. Doesn't look like it. And that's how you Boolean all of that. Now, obviously, we've got a ton of extra topology here, and we also have a lot of ingons like this one that really need to be quadrangulated, or quadrangulated at least, or triangulated in order to keep this thing workable. So all we have to do is, if we select using select all the faces, we can turn off the X-ray now. Select all those faces and mesh. Let's see, which one is it? Face, triangulate faces first. So that's going to give us all of the topology, and then just face, tries to quads to clean up some of the ones that we don't really need the tries on. And this way we can get to sort of our final topology. So we'll go to object mode. We'll look for some weirdness here in terms of, let me go ahead and save. Oh, I'm in. So we do have a little weirdness like this, but all we have to do to fix it is, if we hit edit, vertex, select those two, modify, merge vertices at center, or not modify, sorry, same thing back here, G, you can join parts like this. Let's see if we can select. Yeah, so there we get the entire seam now that we've fixed by double clicking on it. So if we just say mark seam, double click, mark seam. Now we've got our ability to mark the seams easier. Just hit G. Can't get them always. Not sure why. Maybe that there's an extra point there. Let's check. Nope. Anyway, just double clicking on both sides. Gives us the ability to mark them a little bit easier. So now that I've shown you how to mark these seams, I'll show you in the next video at the beginning. We'll go and UV map, but just in the interim, go and mark all the seams at the 90-degree angles, basically. That's what we're looking for. So that you end up, I'll show you in the beginning of the next video. Whoops. Then we get all the windows cut out. Like that. And then we'll talk about how to project all of this or unwrap it. So, if you have any questions, just post them in the comments. And I'll show you in the next video how to UV map this thing, get a texture on it, and we'll approach, if we have time, we'll go into the seating, and if we don't, then we'll do it in another video. Thanks.